Okay, open the lens, there, now. Okay.
Some of those things need to be adjusted, that's all. I just want to get that right before once I post it, I just like to post it and kind of forget about it instead of having to say, hey, could you take that down? Because, because now we have a new, we have a new sprinkler fee for $30 or something, so I just want to get that. I'll get that to you. Actually, I think I can get that to you electronically anyway, if you want to look at it in the meantime, maybe in February. You can just, anything that raises a red flag with you, I know on the light one, there's some stuff in there that we gotta get out of there. It just does, it's so,
Well, if it's on the internet, it's gotta be true.
it's not on the internet
So,
yet. It's not on the internet yet, so.
But was there an issue with the payment on the thing? They've got that all set, right?
Yeah, they received
That
it,
held us up for just a short while? We're good?
yeah, about a week and a half. She
Yeah,
did
okay.
receive that down.
All right, yeah. I'm with Dana, let's just try to get a firm date we can go live with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I only have a recommendation that when you do go live with it, that you put on the town website a pointer to that particular site, so that we're taught, if somebody goes to the town website, that they can end up clicking on that. If you give that to the webmaster, I'm sure she'll put that on so they can click on it and actually get all the information that you have on your site.
Yeah. Who's town webmaster now?
Somebody-
Still
Kathy
Kathy
Mattson.
Mattson.
I'd just like to say on the website, I'm glad to see it's finally rolling, but I do have to say that it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we know that.
It has been a very long time coming, to be able to set up a website, pay somebody to do it, get it over with. Be great to have it out there, that's all.
Is it on hold? They're all set on hold.
Yeah, you all signed that old stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
We discussed recloses the last time, the failed reclose on King Philip Trail. Discussed acquiring 2 new ones, so there's already a notice in the paper, just a copy of the bid notice and the specifications, which are quite amazing at 24 pages. But the reason I did this is because looking through the bid documentation from mid-2005, last time what we ended up with, instead of 3 reclosures in 2006, we ended up with 2 recloses and 1 sectionalizer, which we do not want to do. I talked to Dave Colombo at length, and I said I made sure that if, in the language of this bid, after all this, if we end up with a sectionalizer instead of a reclose, our head's gonna roll. It's not a device that's really designed for a small, closed loop distribution system like this. Sectionalizers are great out in the Midwest where you may have feeders running for miles and miles and literally hit one farm or one house. It'll go for 10 or 11 miles before you hit something else. Sectionalizers automatically open and close, they kind of sense each other and they work on a loop scheme. We don't loop our feeders together normally. All of our feeders leave the station, they go to a point and they stop. So recloses are better for that reason because they can actually break load.
Yeah.
The only load the sectionalizer can break is the 400 amps that's rated for. That's it. As opposed to the recloses that can break now probably almost 18,000 amps.
And the sectionalizer is just a one shot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, we still have a sectionalizer in-house, in stock, so there's a possibility that once we get King Philip Trail unit back up, that won't be a big deal, we've already coordinated. We'll get the depot road up, we'll have to do some coordination with that. Maybe wait 6 months to a year, just keep track of any operations on them, any outages, any problems. If there's no problems, one of my suggestions earlier on, years back, was to sectionalizer is great the furthest you push it out, and we have had several problems way out on 101, particularly in the summertime with lightning. I've seen some lightning strikes take down sections of cable way out on 101 headed into Gardner, but where at the time, in the absence of a sectionalizer or any recloser on Depot Road, it just went all the way back to the station. So everybody, all the way down Main Street, down State Road, Depot, North Main, they're all out for the duration.
Yeah.
So the possibility of sectionalizing may work out there in conjunction with the recloser behind it on Depot. Coordinate those the right way, the next lightning strike, you could just have 101 out from, say, you know, Gary's Automotive to the town line, and that's a lot better than having the entire feeder out, so. We still do have it in-house, we just, the fate of it is uncertain, that's all. I think the bid opening is February 1st
Yeah.
at 1.
Friday?
That's Friday. So we anticipate a lot of bids. We've already been visited by several vendors, so I'd imagine the pricing will be pretty competitive.
You're not putting in mind that the kind that we had problem with that.
They don't make those anymore. The Joslin HV, Joslin High Voltage, was actually bought by Thomas and Betts sometime in the last 2 years. The interesting thing is Thomas and Betts makes a unit now called the Viper, I think, and it looks a little bit more rugged than units we purchased before, but I don't know how much of the design of the one that exploded is incorporated, so that's just something to take into consideration. Nothing against Thomas and Betts, but you know, when you do this for a while, you learn to be leery of certain brands and not so much of others. And you know, the entire station over there is you know, formerly McGraw Edison, now Cooper. Tom and I have a lot of faith in Cooper, like their controls, like the regulators, like the recloses. Minimal problems over there.
I went to the conference, the ECNI conference, and Thomas and Betts was there, and I just outright asked them, told them what happened, and asked them what they had to say, and they had nothing to say.
Really?
Yeah, it was,
They didn't say they couldn't, they're all blown up.
they said, no, we've never seen this before.
Oh, really?
And I said, well, what are you doing about it? And they didn't really have an answer for that either.
Truthfully, the thing is actually still in, the unit is actually still in New Jersey. We, not that I'm expecting to, we haven't received an invoice, nor have received any correspondence about the unit, which I think is also interesting. No one's even bothered to follow up and say, you know, we still have your unit, what do you wanna do with it? I mean, you know, beyond throwing it in the dumpster, I don't know what else you can do with it. I mean, the vacuum bag's literally split, that is supposed to interrupt the arc, so it is useless, you know. When they came back with a response that it need to be replaced, it was kind of like, I know that, I would just like to know why. What created this, this condition, you know, because we've got the same unit on Bolivar Road, and we just don't want another repeat.
They
I don't
kept
know.
that, they kept that unit, right? They kept the damaged unit?
Yes, they still have it, yeah. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I did have, after that non-response by Thomas and Betts, we did have United Power Group out for half a day on Bolivar Road, took the recloser out of service, just tested it for the dielectric, we measured it, some insulation testing, power factor testing, and passed with flying colors, so there's no reason to believe that just because the other one failed, that this one's gonna fail. Like with any other electrical device, I guess it could fail at any moment, but nothing in the test report illustrated that we should be careful. You know, if I had thought that before, I would have approached the board and said, look, we might as well just buy 3. But I think, for now, I think we're all set on Bolivar Road. We definitely know it works, because there's so many customers on it, there's so many laterals, so many fuses, it gets quite a bit of operations, but. So that bid package is in there if you wanna look at it. Yeah, this will take a little bit of time. Under that, if the pamphlet that starts with Schedule A3.
Yeah.
Right, this is a copy of our, for the most part, our rates now. There's a few proposed changes I put in here. I'll just take them in order. The transition adjustment charge, that's the PPCA charge. The PPCA charge was negative 0.25 cents for this month, for January. It was 0 for December. Hasn't been negative for quite a while, so I was glad that we were able to do that. And based on the cost of our power supply for 2012, I would expect it to be negative for at least a few months, in advance of January. Anyway, there's a figure there on the front page in red, the 0.0278 cents per kilowatt hour figure. This is a number that's supposed to be calibrated every year based on your purchase power cost. Excuse me, your cost per kilowatt hour of kilowatt hours sold minus your cost per kilowatt hour of kilowatt hours purchased. In other words, your margin. And let me be clear about the word margin, this is not profit, right? The .0278 cents per kilowatt hour is what we have to manage everything, you know. So this number is supposed to be changed every year based on the calculation, once all the power supply expenses come in. The sales summaries we get pretty quick on, January 2nd when we got back, we basically had the sales summary for December, which was quite dismal. I mean, we didn't even hit 59 million kilowatt hours. It's the lowest I've ever seen.
December?
No, for the year. For the year, it's about 58,700. Let me rephrase that. About 58.7 million kilowatt hours in sales. The year before, I think we were just under 60 million. So we're down about 1.6 million kilowatt hours. I can't pin that to any one instance. I mean, I've been saying it till I'm blue in the face, there's all these empty homes, but there's also a lot of the commercial businesses that are still operating, they're just using less, whether they're getting less business because of the economy, whatever's going on, but almost every rate class is down, so, not real great news. But as a result of that, that number was previously .0308, and based on the calculation I did, it's gonna come to .0278. It's really not gonna change that much at all. This affects the calculation monthly of the transition charge, which, like I said, most of the time, this formula comes out to a positive number that's more than what we really need it to be for our customers based on our cash flow or miscellaneous income. So it's been the practice since I've been here that this number typically just gets adjusted down based on our miscellaneous income from the month before. So if we may have an okay month of sales, but on the same time, on the other end of the books, we may have brought in 30,000, 40,000 in some kind of miscellaneous billing, like, Verizon paying us for poles, or, the FAA tower paying us for that job, things like that. So we're able to adjust that down. But it does need to be, this is part of the rate, part of the tariff, so it does need to be accepted by a vote, like when we get to the end. So you're not gonna get your February bill and be like, oh my God, I can't believe how crazy this is. I mean, you probably won't even see this difference here. Is there anything else? The next page is just the NIPA power credit calculation. Nothing's changed there. That actually can't change. That's based on a bunch of numbers you obtain from your power supply, 2 of which are estimates. The next change would be the residential A1. I apologize. I believe it's rate A. For some reason, for years now, I've been calling it A1. I believe it's rate A. But anyway, the residential rate, the regular residential rate. My suggestion is dropping the customer charge from $4 down to $3. Also, item number 5, the reconnection charge. We charge $20 for reconnection on during the time of year we can shut people off when we're out of the moratorium. But for a number of years, it had said in here $40, which is too much. We have not been charging people the $40. We've been charging them the $20. So but I noticed that there was a typo there. So I did change that to 20. In other words, if Wednesday's our shut-off day, if we shut off some people in the morning, most of them will come in before 3 and pay us the 20 plus the balance and get turned back on. So we weren't charging anyone the 40, but when I went through these rate changes to look at it, I noticed it was 40, so I did change it back to 20 with belongs. The customer charge reduction, the customer charge is a flat fee every month. It's really just a function of what it's costing us to, with all our customers combined, read the meter 12 times a year, generate 12 bills, process 12 payments, and some of the miscellaneous office expenses involved in that, and it's just, that cost is just way down. I mean, we've been doing the billing completely outside of the department now for almost 2 years. So just in going around, I've been to the staff accountant, to the clerk, been to the office manager, actually sat down with them, how much time do you really spend on billing now as opposed to before? I know before, with electric billing 36 times a year, I couldn't have the office manager do anything that day, between printing ledgers and, stuffing envelopes and using the Pitney Bowes machine that would break, I swear to God, every January it would break. But, that's all gone away now. That's, Bill Trust takes care of that now. I think they're based in New Jersey. Because of that, I don't see any reason to drop that, minimum charge down. That's gonna cover us for the expense of that, like I said, all year. But right now, people are paying residential customers right now are paying $48 a year to have their meter read and have that reading go back into the computer, have the ledger generated, have a bill generated, mail it, then get their payment back, process that, and then repeat the process 11 times. So that's just, the cost to do that is down now. The cost for them now will be $36 a year, down from 48, so I don't see any reason why not to reduce that while we can. That's it on that rate, just the $20, just removing the $40 and making it 20, removing the $4 charge and making it 3. That's it on the residential. C1.
Dana, any room for questions about that
Yeah,
before he
after
gets
we're
too
done.
far? Okay.
C1 is the large commercial industrial. There's only 17 customers on that rate anyway. I looked at that rate, I didn't see any change that need to be made for part 1 or part 2. There's only one customer on part 2, which is the paper mill. He's the only one with a demand big enough to justify that rate, so there's no changes made to C1. C3, you probably remember a year and a half ago when I did the rate change, and we added a demand charge to C3, but we dropped the transition charge to kind of balance it out. At the time, we split C3 into a part 1 and part 2. The part 1 C3 was basically anybody who had a service, single phase or 3-phase, for a use other than residential, that didn't have a demand meter, which is basically a house meter. The house meters we use that are automatically read, we use a lot of those for our C3 customers, whether it's a business or even a second meter on a garage or something like that. And then you had part 2. Part 2 were the people which had the demand meters installed already, so it kind of took some of the work out of it. The reason this is not going to work for me long term is because every month I get a sales summary from the staff accountant based by. Yes, yeah, I'll explain. I'll get there. The reason this is going to work is I do the accountant does a sales summary for me monthly, so I know the first of each month basically how we did the month before. There's no way to, because of the billing system, there's no way to look at all the C3 data over a month, a day, a week, or a year, and separate the part 1 from the part 2. That was kind of an oversight, I guess, on my part. The simple solution is to create a C4 rate, and what I'm doing is I'm taking part 2 of C3 and I'm just making it part 4. When I do that, we're going to have a new rate, and I think that'll be like a 7th rate. No one's rates are changing beyond the customer charge reduction, which I'll get to in a second. So you can see if you flip to the next page, you've got C4. Again, nothing has changed except the conditions by which you can be on there. When I look through, the objective of this rate change back a year and a half ago was to keep everyone on rate 3, and that includes M3 as well. The town has many accounts on an M3 rate. The objective was to keep everybody as close to.
Excuse me, Bev, can you conduct your meeting either before the
Excuse me.
meeting or after the
I'm
meeting?
sorry, I just asked him something, that's all. Excuse me.
All right. So the objective before was to have all the rate 3 customers, the C3s and the M3s, pay around 13 cents. Because based on the rate study I'd done with them, that seemed like, according to them, that was where we wanted to be based on the cost of service. The easiest thing to do here is separate these two, is have a small commercial and industrial, a C3, and then a medium commercial industrial, like a C4. Somebody who either runs a business or doesn't run a business, maybe has a little shop in the garage, and for whatever reason they want a second meter. Every time the second meter goes on that residential property, it just becomes a C3. That just covers us in the future in case they do start like, John's wood cutting, all of a sudden it's a commercial account. That would be a perfect example of a small commercial. A medium commercial covers quite a bit of people. That would be like, the package stores, which there's a couple, people getting over 15, 20, 25 kilowatts of demand, things like that. So I find I can make all these changes as far as a billing system pretty easily already. I think a good cutoff point for small commercial is 2,000 kilowatt hours a month. I mean, unless you're a residential customer with all electric heat in the winter, you're not gonna hit 2,000 kilowatt hours, or maybe, having a pool or central air in the summer, which we don't see too much of here. I think a good cutoff point for the small would be anywhere from 0 to 2,000, and then the next logical group would be from 2,000 to 10,000 kilowatt hours a month. The reason I picked 10,000 is because the minimum requirement to get our rate 1, which is our large rate, is to achieve 10,000. And in the past few years, because of customers' usage being down, several people have been moved off rate 1 onto rate 3. So they're not paying $6 for demand, because that's not what it costs us anymore to provide them that. But beyond the red language about eligibility, or I should say availability, 0 to 2,000 for rate 3, 2001 to 10,000 kilowatts a month for rate 4. The only other change is, again, the same thing with the customer charge. It doesn't really cost us any more to read a residential meter than it does for some of these commercial meters beyond, maybe the meter reader taking a 30-foot walk, So, but again, all the same reasons I gave before about the office expenses being down, it literally just taking less time to bill people now apply here. Which is why I would suggest taking the C3 rate, which was also $4 a month, drop that to 3. The C4 rate was actually $8 a month. Now, the reason it was been $8 for about a year and a half was to recover some of our metering costs. We spent probably, I'm guessing, $12,000 to $13,000 since 2006, kind of slowly getting ready for this movement toward, a demand rate, because, over the years, capacity charges are our biggest expense now, where energy used to be. Now it's capacity, which is why we need to know what these people are achieving for demand. Obviously, the bulk of that metering cost has been recovered. So the customer charge here is really, you could really cut it in half. You could say $3 for the billing end of it, and the other $3 would be to recoup the rest of the.
C4?
Yes, C4. So $3 for the regular customer charge to recover just the billing end of it, and the other $3 would be probably another year of charging them $3 is gonna wipe out any metering costs, any kind of development costs, and then I would say I see all these rates just being the same number someday, once we get, we don't have every meter automatically read. When we do, when the legislature and really the federal government decides what should happen with metering, what's gonna happen, it's probably gonna be a mandate, we're not gonna have much of a choice. That's when, whether that's 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the road, I see us eventually changing every meter to something that's, compliant and standard. At that point, we really look at the customer charge and say, is it even, do we even need it at all? And if we do, does it need to, when you get the customer charge down to, like a $1.50, at some point you will eventually just wipe it away, But it's always gonna cost us something to build people, I guess is my point. So those are my suggestions for the changes on the Schedule C3, and we schedule C4. So next one, yeah. Next one's my favorite, the T3 rate, time of use rate for commercial industrial. There's 5 customers on this. PLM did a rate remodel design in 2008, and the guy who did it had attended a few board meetings, I remember, and he was modeling this, commercial industrial time of use rate that we were trying to develop after an N-Star rate that he had just developed for N-Star. We weren't that crazy about the numbers coming back, because we just, Zynetics is the customer on this rate. They use arc furnaces, they work with specialty materials. They have an odd cycle, but when they can, they try and remain off-peak, because off-peak cost is, lower. The number in red used to be $24 per month for a customer charge, and when I had taken over for Sean, I had approached Mayhew at PLM to kind of ask if he could pick that charge apart for me. The $24 a month just seemed really, really too high, so I don't know how we justified that. When I did the rate change a year and a half ago, I immediately cut it to 12 when I realized that what he had done was was assumed that we were gonna have hundreds of customers on this rate, that we're gonna need a brand new meter right off the bat, where we only have 5. I mean, I can name them, you know, we've got the animal control, the dog place, dog rescue place, we got Zynetics. I think we have 2 water department accounts, and, no, I can't remember the other 2, that's okay. But again, we don't have hundreds of these customers. He based this model around, this rate was gonna be so good that people were gonna be drawn to it and actually approach the department and say, gee, I'd really like to be replaced on this rate, because I can operate off-peak and save a fortune. Wasn't the case at all. Why am I dropping it down to 6? Again, the same reason as the C4, $3 a month to send these people the bill, do all the processing. The other $3 a month is, I anticipate us having to change these meters someday eventually, but I just want that, I want that $3, that additional $3 to, I'd like to keep it at $6 just to be safe. I don't wanna have to incur all of a sudden a big cost. I mean, just to change one of the meters at Zynetics is almost $975, because it's, the time of use meters are a whole different ballgame. The program is nightmarish to do. Usually what we do now is have the program just done at the factory, because there's so, you know, there's holidays that fall on the same day, then there's ones that don't, there's daylight savings time. And then there's times of day, you know, before 8 AM it's cheaper, after 8 AM it's more, and then at 9 PM it reverts, you know, that's what time use is basically.
Can you check those meters in-house? Those time of rate meters?
For accuracy?
Yeah.
The Zynetics ones we can,
With
the single phase ones we can.
With the equipment we have?
Yeah, we have a single phase one at the that little PRV hut on Dudley Road
Yeah.
for the water department, and we have a single phase one at the animal control. Yeah, we can test those for accuracy. But that meter with animal control, I think that's only, I don't even think that's 5 years old. I mean, when we buy all those meters, they come with test results, and we usually plan on those test results being good for at least 10 years before we go to a regular round of just testing all meters, getting on a meter test cycle. The 3-phase meters we buy come with test results from the factory. We actually don't have equipment here to test 3-phase meters out of the box. I've never really seen a need for it. We're changing a meter at a location. You know, the customer typically has a demand of, say, 300 kilowatts, and maybe he uses 500,000 kilowatt hours a month. Well, if we put the new meter in and his demand comes in at, 306, and he's using 497,000 kilowatt hours, well, it's just, we're good, so.
We also have a power recorder that measures energy too, so if you really question it, you could verify it with that too.
Yeah, so that's my only change for that. I don't think there's anything, yeah, the A2 rate is the last rate. Nobody is on this rate. This rate mystifies me. We came up with it with good intentions. At the time, there was a lot going on. We had the animal control place being built. The heat storage system in there has saved, a lot of money in the heating, because it charges those refractive bricks off-peak. And then during, at 8 o'clock, the charging kicks off, and the only thing you've got is a couple of quarter horsepower motors below it, just blowing the hot air out. Works out pretty well. We've got 3 of them at Willow Street. We have 1 of them at the Dudley hut. We actually have 1 at Sawyer Street too.
Maple Street too.
Maple Street, yeah. They work quite well. When this rate was developed, it's not for anyone. A lot of municipals and IOUs have a residential time use rate that the customer, the only requirement for the customer to be on is typically you have to use a certain amount, you have to use a lot. That lot is usually 2,000 a month, average. I mean, I've seen, there's houses in town that will use 5,000-6,000 kilowatt hours in just a single month in January and February if they do have electric heat. So the average throughout the year ends up being over 2,000. They might be eligible for something like that. But this rate is specifically designed for somebody who wants to take their entire heating system out of their house, whether it's conventional electric heat, oil heat, whatever they have, propane, and put this in and then get on the rate. So it just, no one is on it. I see myself looking at this rate in the next couple of years, and maybe there's a chance. We'll probably do a rate study this year anyway, because it's been 5 years since we've had an official, licensed rate study done. 2013 is probably the time to do it. When we do that, that's might be decision time on what do we do with this rate? Do we just change it to include, anyone who is eligible, who would otherwise be eligible under rate A, which is why I think I called it A1, because this conventionally got called A2. You know, maybe in the next year's time, we work out a rate where we can save customers money if they try and do things later on, you know. I don't do a lot after 9 o'clock at my house personally, beyond like, you know, when watching TV, maybe some laundry, but I don't know how much it would really save people. And then the problem is the on-peak cost would obviously be much more than the off-peak cost. But right now, when I started here, the difference between on-peak and off-peak cost was almost 6 cents on the market. Now it's more like 1.8, right? So as a benefit to the time of use rate, there's really not nearly as much benefit now to having people operate off-peak, which is kind of the reason that this rate is not gonna really work the way it is.
Yeah, when you looked at the numbers, yeah, it's not beneficial. And what's the cost of the meter for the A2? You have to get a different meter for that, right?
Well, most of these are single phase, so those meters are probably around $325, but yes, we do. I mean, this is replacing a $58 Centron house
Yeah.
meter, you know. You know, we could do it tomorrow, but the rate is not only is so restrictive, because the requirement is you have to do this, you have to change out your heating system. Not only do you have to do that, but it's really not that near as much of a benefit to us now. And I would have to go through all these numbers based on the shift in the last 2 years. The reason I haven't is because nobody's on it. No one's asked about it. At the time this went in, we were talking about some kind of a program across the street. Yeah, we're trying to do a bunch of things across the street. I'm looking into whether we can, I know that the residential customers can call through Mass Save and do the residential heat audit thing. But, you know, all those people over there are essentially residents, but because it's a group of buildings, and because they behave a little funny because, you know, it's still, even though it's a municipal building, for the purposes of construction, it's a commercial building. So their attitude is, well, it's not really residential, but it is. They're also on rate A. They've been on rate A forever, even though we have 3-phase meters over there with demand. They're just on a rate A, just like a house would be. So I'm still kind of pressing them on that and seeing if that's something. Because if we did that, you know, some kind of an analysis like that, and we went back to the Council on Aging and said, you know, you're losing like thousands of dollars a year through heat or something like that, then that would be something that would warrant this type of a program, because then it would be worth it, because people could still turn up the heat during the day if they wanted to, you know, the people, if they got cold. There's still thermostat control, all it's gonna do is make the fans turn faster, but the charging has already been done at, you know, 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And at 14 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour, all they're doing is spinning those fans. It might be a huge savings, so that could be something in the future. But I mean, for right now, I did propose doing the same thing to the customer charges, knocking it down, but in retrospect, there's really no point to do that, because there's nobody on it, so. And on the second page, you've got a similar situation with the reconnection policy. Since time, it said $40, reconnection fee's never been $40, it's always been 20, so I did change it to 20, but again, nobody's on this rate.
That's normal business hours.
Yeah. Right, exactly. You can see it's $200 after hours. We've had pretty good luck with that too. You know, we were running into the problem where we started having a lot of people just coming in like, you know, like right at 3:05, right at 3:10, and it's like, oh, you know, you're gonna make me pay all this money for, you know, 10 minutes, and it's like, well, listen, you know, there's nobody here to put your meter back in. This is a union shop, it's a call out, so yeah, that's what it costs. And it's actually worked out pretty well. It's drastically reduced the number of meter call outs. I wanna say in 2012, the number of times people are actually willing to pay the $200, I think was only about 5 or 6 times, maybe 7. Where the year before, it was just, you know, come in the next morning, it's like, I went out 4 times last night. It's like, you know, and this is when the meter reader was doing the call-outs. I mean, by the time you have him in for, he would get a 2-hour minimum. By the time you had him in for that plus a vehicle, you're already out, because we were only collecting $75. We were barely breaking even. That's why this all changed initially, but again.
They had plenty of time to come in.
Well, that's what I mean. There were some that you got the impression they were doing it routinely, and maybe some of them just, you know, ran into trouble or tough time, whatever, I don't know. But it's worked out pretty well so far. haven't had any major problems.
So do you wanna
So, I mean,
vote on this?
excuse me, yes, if you,
Will?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions if you could indulge them. One is that I'm glad to see that a rate study was done and some adjustments were made,
Well, rate
especially
study
on.
hasn't been done recently, but John said we're gonna do one this year.
Oh, okay, but I'm glad to see some adjustments as to some of the charges that have been talked about previously. But one of the things that I know I've talked about a number of times in the past was whether you were gonna be looking at a rate adjustment for those folks that are on some type of
It's
assistance.
It's on the agenda,
It's on the
actually.
agenda.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Down the bottom now.
Oh, okay, the lifeline, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
It's on the agenda.
okay.
So, is there a motion here to accept John's recommendations?
That's all the ones in red, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
So moved.
The second?
Is there a motion?
I made a
Yeah,
motion.
is there a second?
Motion in a second, yes.
Okay, Greg,
Yes?
and Chris,
Yes.
and yes. Yes?
I don't know, 3 or 4 meetings back, I had asked about the $4 charge computed on a calculator, how much that amounted to the $4 charge. And Driscoll had said that it was, the $4 charge was used for overhead, so the next meeting I followed up on it again. Asked what the overhead was for, and that's when he brought out that it was used to pay for the billing. Just curious what the amount of the $4 would go to billing, if it was the whole $4? And if it was, you know, how is it he can adjust it down now to the $3 if,
Because we're outsourcing our billing.
I realize that, and that was one of the questions I had asked him, what they do with the $4. Took 2 meetings to get it out of him that it was for billing. Now, how
Are
much
you
does
asking me,
it,
where does the $4 go?
how much does it cost to do the billing is what I'm asking.
Well, right, at the moment, it costs a lot closer to $3 per customer, and 2 years ago, it was a lot closer to 4. So what's happened is, it's gradually just kind of done this, and like I said in the past, I mean, anytime I can save people money, I'm gonna do it, so that's why I don't feel, there's no sense in over collecting $1 from everyone. I realize it's only a savings of $1, but
I applaud you for saving people money, that's great. That's what this place should be for, the whole place. My question is, how much does it cost to do the billing? Not what you charge the customers for it. What do you pay the outsourcing company that does the billing?
what do we pay Bill Trust annually?
Whoever it is, I don't even know, it's Bill Trust,
Yeah, it's about $26,000 a year
$26,000 a year you pay them.
to process 42,000, roughly 42,000 bills.
At $3 a piece.
No, see, that's what, Bill
I'm-
Trust is not the only entity involved here. We have a meter reader, we have an office manager, we have a staff accountant, we have me, we have a superintendent. Everybody has some have a much smaller piece. Probably the biggest chunk of that expense is the meter reader, because about 40% of his labor throughout the year is spent on meter reading. He also drives a vehicle, which has been turned out to be very expensive to maintain. So all that stuff is built in there. So you've got the cost of Bill Trust, you've got the cost for the meter technician.
Meters.
Yes, yeah. Occasionally we have to change meters. There's a mechanism for that. Everyone's labor, time, and materials is in there. As much as I could gather together, and still the figure I get comes way closer to 3 than 4. So that's why it's 3. That's, it's just easier to work with round numbers. But if we do this again in a couple of years and ends up being 2, then it goes to 2. I mean, eventually there might come a point where we're doing, we've got it so streamlined that they're just, there may not be a customer charge that's a flat charge, but that means we'll just be recovering our metering cost through another charge, whether it's transition. I am bound by DPU regulations on which particular charge I can apply which one of our costs to, if you know what I mean.
Well, I'm still kind of confused. Maybe I've looked into it too far and reading too much into it, I'm not too sure, but in 2009 is when the $4 charge started, I think.
Nope. Well, it was
Before
always a-
that,
there
there
was always a
was-
minimum charge of $4. That's what changed. So
You
if
just
you,
changed it to a customer charge and,
I changed it to charging people $4 every month, not just a minimum charge. And the reason I did that is because if you're home all year, great. The minimum charge you never applied before. You paid for the energy you consumed.
Mhm.
If you go away to Florida for 5 months, which a lot of people
Or
do,
camps and stuff like
Or camps
that,
or
sure,
anything, right,
sure.
exactly.
that's what brought the whole thing on, was my mother gets charged $4. They never go see the meter. It costs you nothing to see that meter, because you don't see it for 6 months. And the next bill that she gets bagged for 6 months of reading a meter that doesn't get, doesn't get read for $4. Now, at the end of 6 months, she gets the bill, it's the $4 times the 6 months, and it's on that first bill. So I looked at her bill, and I says, wow, why do they charge you all this? They don't, I says, I'll ask them. I asked her that question, and I asked her how many customers there were. It's a grand total of $170,000. So what you're telling me is after the $27,000 that you use for the company that does the billing, there's still $125,000 in costs to read the meters, and the guy, the truck, whatever. I just, it's kind of going around in my head as far as the cost of that $4. It just seems like a ton of money that's coming in that, where does it go? That's all, I'm just curious where it goes. I'm just,
Just, if I may, just based upon the amount of billings that you said, that's 4,200 times 4 times the 12 months, that's
42,000.
42,000?
42,000 bills,
42,000 bills, not 4,200.
42,000.
42, okay.
Any other questions?
That's a substantial amount of money, because I was looking at 4,200 bills at $4 over 12 month period, collecting it, that'd be over 200,000, so you're collecting much more than that. I just add another zero to that, so you're collecting almost 2 million, somewhere between 1.5 and $2 million.
No, you're doing something. I'll tell you what, can I break that down for you and send it to you and
Yeah, if you would,
Dave- and
please, yeah,
Dave?
just
that'd be great,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah, because we're not,
Not collecting $2 million in the service.
No.
No, I hope not.
$2 million,
I hope not.
$2 million
Pilot
will be
payment would
collected
be
in 3
$2
months
million.
from everybody, so that's not, I'll break it down better.
Thank you.
42,000 bills, with the bills that we're paying to have billed. That's how much that's how many bills billing companies putting out.
Per year.
Oh, for the entire year, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that would,
Julie?
that still would be about $200,000.
That's about it, no, it's close to
The
it.
figure that I got,
I'll get it to you.
Okay,
I'll
thank
get it
you.
to
the figure that I got at the $4 fee was $168,000, and at $3, using the same figures, it would be $126,000. So if bill trust is, what, $26,000 a year?
Yes.
I would like to see the breakdown as far as labor, time and materials.
Well, I'll be sure and get you a copy then too.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be an interesting figure to take a look at.
The only one follow-up question I have, if I may, on the $4 charge, after the second meeting asking about it, you had said to me that there were 3,600 customers that pay the $4 charge. I think that was the number you gave me, that's how I got, times 4 was $168,000.
They don't
Income.
all pay 4, some of them pay 8,
Okay,
which now they're gonna pay 3 and 6 instead
are
of 4.
are there some that don't pay? Are there any bills, any meters that are read that do not get charged?
About 16 or 17 of them. Everybody on rate 1, which is some of the municipal, large users like the high school, the sewer plant, and one of the water, Sawyer Street, yes. And if that turns out to have been, in retrospect, a mistake over the last 20 years, that's something that the rate study done by an outside guy will pick up. And he'll recommend that, because yes, it does cost us money to read those 16, 17 meters as well, and I understand that. But part of it was, the people in that rate class are paying so much more money by orders of 10, by orders of magnitude, that it's like, paper mill pays me $186,000 a month, does it make sense to to add $4 on there, you know, maybe it does. That's
How
what-
much do you pay them for the power you buy from the paper mill? I mean, you show
On
three,
average, we pay about 6 cents.
no, I mean, how much total a month roughly goes back to them? Because you list on here Seaman Paper is 3,444,779 kilowatt hours. What do we get for that? I mean, I realize they're a big customer. Is that rate that we charge them, or we pay them for that power?
We buy power from.
We
the
purchase
landfill.
all the power that they generate at the Gardner landfill.
I realize that, and it's 3,400,000. My question is, how much does that cost us? What do we pay
We
them?
pay them kilowatt hour.
We pay them per kilowatt hour on average last year, I wanna say about 6.2 cents.
Okay, what, is that what we pay pretty much when we buy it? Or are we giving them a better rate, or is,
No, that's all we're paying them. No, our all-in wholesale power cost is not 6.2 cents, it's much higher than that.
okay, so they get we pay them less? is what-
It's a deal, yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
just curious what we pay them, because
Yeah.
there's no other way of finding out other than asking you.
That was a good deal.
Okay, next item. Business manager position. Oh, yeah, Kathy Webster.
Hold on, I have a, yeah, just hand those down to Greg if you would. Chris.
I don't know, John, is there any reason why this wasn't put into the executive session? This discussion of personnel, I don't know.
Yes, I was informed by council that it shouldn't be.
Okay.
I asked at the onset, so.
Yep.
I did write the board a letter, even though it seems a little silly we're all here talking about, but I'll just go over the gist of what's happening here. We've had an employee here of 27 years, Kathleen Webster. She's been of which she's been the office manager for the past 16 years. She's responsible for overseeing and supervising all aspects of the business and the office end of operations for light and water. She supervises a light employee and a water employee. The light employee would be the staff accountant. The water employee is the water billing clerk, secretary. A position like this, consistent with the other municipals in Massachusetts, is usually referred to as a business manager. It's a salary position and it's exempt. And at the moment, the office manager here is neither. She is non-exempt and she is paid hourly, which means that if she happens to bump over 40 hours a week, we are required to either pay her overtime or match it in comp time. That's one, not necessarily a disadvantage. That's the nature of being non-exempt. My suggestion to the board is that we make Kathy, my suggestion to the board is that they vote to authorize me to create this business manager position here and have that filled by Kathy. And from this point forward, it will be a salary position, it will be an exempt position. Because of the supervisory nature of it, much like the superintendents manage the light and water operations respectively, Ron Water and Tom Lights, Kathy has the same supervisory responsibilities for the front office. And I guess I'm at the top under the umbrella of everyone. That's why I'm asking this, in addition to the sometimes confidential nature of the information that gets circulated between her and I, involving just, the developing and typing, copying, printing the executive session minutes. She's the only other individual here who's privy to that information, as she is my personal administrative assistant. So there's a bunch of reasons I think this would be a good move to do. This doesn't involve any change right now in pay or benefits at all. This is strictly creating a position and changing the nature of the pay from hourly to salaried, from non-exempt to exempt, that's all.
Is she gonna carry, is there a job description for her in that union position? Not in the union.
She is not in the union.
Right.
There is a job classification in the union contract for an office manager. There is. Now, the problem I foresee in the future is eventually everybody retires. So looking ahead, the office manager retires. I don't doubt that one of the women working in the front office thinks that, and this may be the case, that their next natural progression is to become the office manager. But if they opt to not leave the collective bargaining unit, then that leaves me out on a limb. And it means basically what I have to do is hire someone else who can fit this description of exempt and salaried and, you know, again, the confidential nature of it. I can't have somebody preparing the executive session minutes whilst we're in the middle of an intense negotiation, right? Meanwhile, I'm handing documents back and forth to the party I'm negotiating with. You know, it's just not, it's not the right way to,
Yeah.
you just can't do it that way. You can't have a fair bargaining if that's the case.
Right. I think several years ago, we did go through the process of defining job roles and responsibilities for everybody in the department, exempt, non-exempt, whatever the case may be. I don't know if the business manager was not in there, but if it wasn't, I would want to see that gets included, that job description goes along with the position, just to make sure that we filled in that hole. But, you know, I'm in favor of creating this position, I think, so.
Mine too.
um,
So is there a motion to create this position?
Yeah,
Question?
some discussion?
Question, two questions. Is someone gonna be hired to replace her duties that she did?
No. There's no new employee coming in, just her title's gonna be changed,
Why?
because for the reasons John just told you.
Is that including a high pay raise?
No, this doesn't involve pay or benefits at all. Her pay and benefits remain the same. This is just a reclassification of her job title, that's all.
Right. Thank you.
Dana,
Yep.
is the job gonna be posted?
This job gonna be posted. I don't know. Should it be?
No.
No.
You're not filling a position, she's already there.
You're
You just
creating a new
You're
position?
creating a new position.
We'll have to get a definitive answer on that.
Those sticky ones.
Yeah. Kinda sure we'll get.
We don't, this is an exempt position. Like I said, we went through this before when I took over with Tom. We posted the position. I thought at that time we didn't need to do it. I still think that. Yeah, we can find that out.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe
Would
we
you be
should
willing
move
to,
forward.
would you be willing to give me 1 second and I can make a phone call and find out in about 90 seconds? Would you like me to do that so we can?
Yeah, sure, but, you know, I'm still in favor of making the position.
Yeah, we can
And-
vote on
and
making
then,
the position, we just have to see if we have to. post it or
But
not.
go ahead, I mean, stand by, I'm already here.
We'll recess for a
Come on
couple
anyway.
minutes.
They call it temporary television right on top of this.
Greg, just so you can see that, in the report that I was talking about for the water department, there is the budget with all that information on it, and it was part of the overall budgetary process for that year.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I just want to take it into.
Yeah.
That seems to be the last year after
Yeah,
after the two were joined,
Yeah.
that it was done. It was done previously, but that was the last year. It
Yeah.
seems that there was,
well,
whether it was an oversight or by
Yeah.
the general manager or the board oversight, I don't know. But
Yeah.
it would be nice to get back to that so that the
Oh, yeah,
community can see that.
there should be no problem at all to get that to you, but I think, you know, when this transition occurred, right, there was probably so many